cantiknya buat bibirku tak.
So, good morning to everyone. Today we shall be discussing on linguistic competence. Of course, the first 3 topics muna under grammar accuracy. So, the basic topic or the first lesson is all about nouns, and at the end of this topic, I want you to be able to identify the functions of nouns in sentences and of course write sentences using the different function of nouns. So expect that you will be writing sentences using the different functions, and expect also that you're going to identify the functions of nouns in your activities later on. Let us first define what are nouns. As we all know, a noun is a name of a person, place, thing, and idea. Another fun fact is that noun also answers the question who and what in a sentence. So examples of nouns here are written in bold. Number 1 is Abby danced. So your noun is Abby. It answers the question who. Who danced? It is Abby. Therefore, your noun is Abby. Abby danced tango. So Abby and tango are your nouns in these sentences. Another example is Abby, on the other hand, was satisfied with her drink. Abby and drink are your nouns. Another example here, Jane noticed that his drink had so much sugar in it. As we can observe, there can be 1, 2, or 2 or more nouns in a sentence. Now, in order for us to identify nouns in an easier way, we have 5 basic sentence patterns wherein nouns function as or are used as subject, subject complement, object of the preposition, indirect object, and object complement. The first pattern that we have here is the SIV, wherein S stands for subject and IV stands for intransitive verb. We shall later on understand what is intransitive verb and transitive verb in our succeeding topic. So here, example is the party has just started. Your subject is the party and your intransitive verb is started. Catriona Gray won. That is SIV pattern since your subject is Catriona Gray and your intransitive verb is won. So that pattern is called SIV, subject and intransitive verb. Another pattern here is STVDO, wherein the sentence is formatted as subject, transitive verb, and direct object. Always remember that direct object answers the question what, and direct object is the receiver of the action. So, people lost hope. Your subject is people, transitive verb is lost, and direct object is hope. Harry witnessed the solar eclipse. Harry is your subject, your transitive verb is witness, and your direct object which answers the question what is the solar eclipse. Another pattern is the SLVSC, wherein we have the subject, the linking verb, and the subject complement. Maria is a visionary. When you try to observe it, is or the verb is used to link the subject and the word visionary. Now, when you try to ask the question, who is the visionary? It is Maria. And who is Maria? She is the visionary. Therefore, we term visionary as subject complement because it is trying to complement your subject, which is Maria. Another example, anyone can be a hero. So, who can be a hero? Anyone. And who can be what about anyone? So, they can be a hero. Therefore, when they complement each other, hero is called a subject complement. Another pattern is STVIODO, wherein IO stands for an indirect object. Indirect object answers the question whom. Example is Terry gave Justin 1,000 pesos. So Terry is your subject, gave is your transitive verb, Justin is your direct object indirect object, and 1,000 pesos is your direct object, because indirect object answers the question whom. Whom did Terry give 1,000 pesos? 1,000 pesos is your direct object. And another pattern, we have STVDOOC, wherein S is the subject, TV transitive verb, DO direct object, OC is your objective complement or object complement. Here we have an example. My sister treats dogs her best friends. So what are dogs? These are her best friends. And who are her best friends? And these are the dogs. That's why friends is considered, or best friends is considered, an objective complement or an object complement, because it's trying to complement the direct object, which is the dogs. Now, aside from patterns in sentences, we also have the 10 functions of nouns in a sentence. So a noun cannot just be a subject. It could function in 10 ways in a sentence. Of course, the first one is as a subject of the sentence. Taal volcano erupted in January. Taal volcano is the subject, and it is also the noun. Direct object, the eruption destroyed many places. So your noun is places, and it is functioning as a direct object because it answers the question what. What destroyed? What was destroyed by the eruption? It's the places. Next, indirect object. I repeat, indirect object answers the question whom. The government provided the people food to eat. Whom did the government provided food to eat? It's the people. Therefore, people is your noun, and it is acting or functioning as an indirect object. Next is object of the preposition. Try to look at the sentence. Many residents in the place left their comfort zones. In the place is your prepositional phrase, and place is included in your prepositional phrase in the place. Therefore, place is an object of preposition because it's a composition of your prepositional phrase in the place. Next is object complement. We have discussed this a while back, subject complement. And then we proceed to appositive. Appositive example is Angel Locsin, a philanthropist, never failed to help. So, a philanthropist is a term or is a noun trying to emphasize or trying to relate the first term that is being said, so that is Angel Locsin. Vocative, let me ask you, citizens of this country, what help can you offer? So when we say vocative, that noun citizens is just trying to give an address to the call you. And then next is modifier. The Filipino citizens once again proved their resilience. So Filipino is trying to modify your noun citizens. So thus, the noun Filipino is acting or functioning as a modifier in the sentence. And the last one, we have possession. Example is, Angel Locsin's beauty is not just skin deep, it is rooted in her heart. So you can notice that a noun is functioning as a possession if there is an apostrophe or there is a mark of possessiveness. That is Angel Locsin's beauty. It's the beauty of Angel Locsin. If it shows ownership, then the noun is functioning as possession. So those are the 10 functions of nouns in the sentence. We have the subject of the sentence, the direct object, the indirect object, object of the preposition, object complement, subject complement, appositive, vocative, modifier, and possession. So that is all about nouns. Let us now proceed to verbs. So, at the end of this discussion, I want you to contrast verbs and verbal. So, what is the difference between verb and verbal? Next, verbals and their functions in context. And of course, construct sentences using correct tense of verbs, because here you shall also be learning on how to actually identify and construct the correct tense and aspects of verbs. We all know already what is the meaning of verb. So example here is the stage play felt so real. Felt is your verb. Mika and Mila are the new YouTube sensations. Are is your verb. Carla played volleyball. Played is your verb. Now there are different kinds of verbs. The first one is the copula or copula verbs, wherein their function is to link subject and predicate. So copula in short are connectors. Their function is to express the state of being of the noun in the sentence. Now there are 4 types of this. Copula, be, that is, examples are is, was, and then are, were, and then next type is perception copula. We have think, thought, seem. So they refer to your sense of smell, sense of taste. So kung ganon, your verbs are actually called perception copulas. Next is state copulas. So they refer to impotent verbs, or there is no movement, there is no change at all. Examples are remain, rest, stand, lie. And then next is change of state copulas, which is actually the opposite of state copula, wherein there is a change in position, there is a potential. So examples are become, became, fall, fell, get, got, come, came, turn, turned, grow, and grew. Another type of verbs are auxiliary verbs. So their function is to help another verb in the sentence to convey the desired message. That's why auxiliary verbs are also called helping verbs, because they are trying to help another verb, or they are trying to help the main verb. So we have 4 examples of auxiliary verbs. We have the be verbs, the do verbs, the have verbs, and the modal verbs. The be verbs are used with the other action verbs to express progressive action and passive voice. These are the is, was, were, and when we try to observe or to look into it, there is a main verb beside it. Example is, Tina is studying in her room at the moment. So is, or the be verbs is used with another verb that is studying. Therefore, your main verb is studying. Next is the do verbs. Of course, you know them. The do, does, and did. Have verbs. Have been, has been, had been. So, those are your have verbs. And modal verbs are basically used as auxiliaries. Now, we have 9 auxiliaries or modal auxiliaries. We have the can, could, will, would, shall, should, may, might, and must. And sometimes we get confused on when to use these modals. Let us discuss them one by one. Can is used when you are trying to express an ability or possibility. Example is, I can dance, I can sing, I can write, I can read. So it's your, or you are trying to express your ability. Now, could expresses an ability also, but it's in the past, a present possibility or a permission. So, I could give you something, so you are just expressing a present or a possibility. Next, will. Will expresses intended future action, asking a favor and asking for information. Say, for example, will you marry me? You're not asking, will you marry me, because you are not sure of it. You are asking, will you marry me, because there is an intention or there is a purpose within. So that's the use of will. Next is would. Would states preference, request a choice politely, explain an action, introduce habitual past action. So I would like a cup of coffee. So you state a preference. Next is shall. Shall expresses an intended future, only that it is being used with first person point of view. So I shall go to school. We shall go to school. So, you use it with the first person point of view. Next is should. It's another modal which expresses obligation. So, you should do this, you should do that. So, there is an obligation. What about may? May is used to express uncertain future action, permission. Ask a yes or no question. May I excuse myself? May I go out? So you're trying to ask a permission. Might is expresses or is used to express uncertain future action. So it might rain tomorrow. Might expresses uncertainty. Must is another modal which expresses obligation. You must pay your taxes. There is an obligation or there is a responsibility that you need to accomplish. And the third type of verbs, we call them action verbs. And under action verbs, we have two types, the transitive and the intransitive verb. Always remember this. Transitive verb require an object. Intransitive verb do not require an object. So, say for example, transitive verb muna tayo. So, Maria, together with her friends, enjoyed the party. So, you need to place there the party because the verb enjoyed is a transitive verb. Kailangang meron siyang object. Next, i-compare natin siya sa intransitive verb wherein they do not require an object. Jason cried. So, hindi mo na kailangang maglagay ng object after the verb cried because Jason cried is already a complete sentence. Ngayon, anong pagkakaiba nila? Transitive verb, example is, I love you. Kapag nilagay mo lang yung I love, it's an incomplete sentence. Because love is a transitive verb. Therefore, you have to place there you or I love apples. Apples or you are examples of an object. Hindi makakatayo or incomplete yung sentence na I love without an object. So, you should place there I love you, I love apples, I love eating to make it complete because love is a transitive verb. But, in intransitive verb, I cried, I failed. It's already a complete sentence. You don't need to place an object there because it's already complete. So that's the distinction between transitive and intransitive verb. Now we proceed to the tenses and aspects of verbs. What's the difference between tenses and aspects of verbs? So when we talk of tenses, we only have three, the present, past, and the future. Now, when we are talking about the aspects of verbs, we have actually simple, perfect, progressive, and perfect progressive. So, they are here well defined already. You just have to compare them. So, what's the core meaning of tenses with simple aspect? So, when your tense is present and you are in simple aspect, it expresses habitual action in the present. So, when we say habitual, it's always being done. So, he goes to bed at 8 every night. So, it's done every night. Next, general timeless truths. The pressure rises as the temperature increases. So, those are simple present verbs. Next, it is also used in subordinate clauses and condition when the main clause contains future verb. If you review well, you will pass the exam. Next is future time expression. I have a presentation tomorrow. Next, present event is usually in sporting events like LeBron gets the ball, he stalls and misses. So that's it. And then imperative statement, tell her it's possible to go out without quarantine pass. And then news headlines, you use a simple present also. NTC orders ABS-CBN shutdown. Next, a definite single completed action event or event in the past. Carlo visited yesterday. That's already in the past. That is in simple past. Habitual or repeated action in the past. When we were still together, he called almost every day. Next is another simple past imaginative conditional in the subordinate clause. If you informed me last week, I could have included you in the list. Next is future, simple future. We have an action to take place at some definite future. Jane will attend a seminar next month. Simple future also is a future habitual action. After this semester, I will go jogging every morning. And the last one is in the main clause of future conditionals. If she fails, she will give up her dream of becoming a doctor. Now we proceed to the core meanings of the tenses with perfect aspect. So, a situation that began at the prior time and is still true in the present. So, when we are talking of perfect aspect of verbs, we are actually referring to two actions being done in the sentence. First one is a situation that began at the prior time and is still true in the present. Next one is a past action that is still true in the present. So it's already in the past and it's still true in the present. That's another two actions being implied. Next is an action that was recently completed. So an action that was recently completed. Next is an under past naman, an action completed in the past before another past action occurred happened. As I have told you, when we are talking of present or of perfect tenses or perfect aspect, we always have two actions that are being referred to. So when we are talking of past perfect, you have an action completed in the past and another past action happened. Karen had already left when Casey called. So two actions already happened, but the first one occurred first. Next is another usage is imaginative conditional in the subordinate clause. Jerry would have won if he had not arrived late. Two actions done in the past, only that the first one happened first. How about future perfect? A future action that will be completed prior to a specific future in time. Walter will have completed his work by tomorrow. Next is a state of accomplishment that will be completed in the future or prior to some other future time or event. 2 years from now on, I will have built my dream house. So a state of accomplishment that will be completed in the future. What about the core meanings of the tenses with progressive aspect? So under progressive aspect, in the present tense, we have here the current action, an expression of future planned event or activity, a change in progress, and an emotional comment on present habit. On past progressive aspect, we have an action in progress at a specific point of time in the past. She was sitting here in this morning. A past action currently happening when another action happened. My husband was cooking when I woke up. So the difference is that in perfect past and perfect future, the two actions being stated are still being done in progress. That's why it is termed as progressive aspect. So that's the main or the simple difference between the two. How about combining the meaning of perfect progressive aspect? So first one, under present, we have a situation or habit that began in the past and continues up to present. Jerry has been coming here since the quarantine was lifted. One action is habitually done and another action is continuing up to the present. Next one, an action in progress that is not yet completed. I have been working on my requirement. So it's still in the present. So he has been doing it and it's still being done until now because it's not yet completed. And the last one, we have a state that changes over time. Kylie has been improving every assessment day. How about perfect progressive past? It's an action or habit taking place over a period of time in the past prior to some other past event or time. Example is Victor had been eating too much for the past few weeks, so his dietitian advised him to control his food intake. One action is in progressive aspect, and another action is in past progressive aspect. How about future? Future is durative or habitual action that is taking place in the present and that will continue in the future up until or through a specific time. So one action is habitually done and another action is continuing in the future or until a set specific time. Now we proceed to verbals. Verbals are basically verbs in form but not in function. So in short, they look like verb but they are not actually used as verbs. Now there are three types of verbs. Verbals, I should say, the gerund, infinitive, and the participles. Gerunds are formed by adding ing to the base form of the verb. Gerunds function as nouns. So, when you look at the example, playing with my daughter makes me happy. So, playing looks like a verb. It states an action, but in this sentence, playing with my daughter makes me happy. Playing is used as a subject, therefore, it is a gerund. Harry enjoys running around the park at a dash. Your verb here is actually enjoys and not running. They are just gerund because they are functioning as a noun. Next is infinitives. Infinitives are formed by using 2 plus base form of the verb. Now, these infinitives function as nouns, adjectives, and adverbs, and they don't function as verb. My friends love to set. So that is an infinitive because you have the 2 plus the verb set. And it is used as noun. My plan to buy a new car this summer has changed. To buy a new car, what is your plan? It's to buy a new car. To buy is trying to modify my plan. Therefore, it is functioning as an adjective in the sentence. She cried hard to convince her mother, but she failed. So, to convince is your infinitives. They look like verbs, but they are not functioning as verbs. Therefore, they are called verbals. And the last type, we have the participles. Participles are formed in 3 ways by adding ing, ed, or en, and having plus verb in past participle. So, participles, they are ending in ing, but they are functioning as adjectives. So, wag tayong malilito. Yung gerund, they also end in ing, pero ang function nila ay noun. Ang participles, they are also ending in ing, but they are functioning as adjectives or modifiers. And participles could also end in ed or en. So those are the 3 types of verbs. Now we proceed to modifiers. What are modifiers? Modifiers can be an adjective, determiner, adverbs, so something like that. The first type of modifier that we have here are adjectives. An adjective is a word that describes a noun or pronoun. Say for example, you are beautiful. Beautiful is an adjective. It's trying to describe the word or the subject you. Examples again here are written in bold. So we have Nadine is using her new dress. So the word new is trying to modify the word dress. Her dress makes her look more sophisticated. Sophisticated is trying to modify look. The long brown lace. So long brown is an adjective. Now under adjectives, we have the degrees of comparison. We have here the positive degree which is used to express or describe the quality of a single noun or a pronoun. So example here is Christina is tall. Fran is attractive. Valerie is smart. So you have a single noun or a single noun to modify. So that is in a positive degree. Iisa lang yung minomodify mo eh. Christina is tall. Christina is only one. Therefore, there is no other words to be modified or to be compared to. That's why it is in a positive degree. Next is comparative degree. When you are trying to compare 2 or more pronouns. So there are rules here. First one is adding er or r to one syllable adjectives. Example is fine. You make it finer, nice, transform it to nicer, large, larger, safe, safer. So that's the basic rule. If there is one syllable, you add only er or r for comparative degree. Double also the last consonant of some adjective before adding er, especially those that ends in c. Say hot, hotter. So you try to double the last consonant. Big turns to bigger. Fat becomes fatter. Sad becomes sadder. And the next rule is change the consonant y to I and add er for adjectives ending in y. Of course, you know this. You learned this in your high school years. Example is busy. You change y to I and then add er for comparative degree. That becomes busier. Happy becomes happier. Pretty becomes prettier. For letter D, you use more or less for two-syllable. So if an adjective is two-syllable, you use more or less. More careless, more pleasant, less stressful, less amusing. And next one, you use more or less for adjectives with three or more syllables. You say more meaningful. You do not say meaningfuler, meaningfulest. So you don't do that. You add more or less. Next is superlative degree. Superlative degree is used to compare three or more nouns. So, kanina, in positive degree, you have only one noun. In comparative degree, that is comparison of two nouns. Under superlative degree, that is comparison of three or more nouns. So, when we understand it, or we try now to determine the rules involved in forming the superlative degree of adjectives, we add est to one-syllable adjectives. Fine becomes finest. Nice become nicest. And another rule is double the last consonant of some adjective before adding est. Okay, let's proceed to the next rule, that is change the consonant y to I and add est for adjectives ending in y. So it's almost similar to the rules under comparative degree, only that you add est at the end and not er. And for letter D, you use must or least for two-syllable adjectives with affixes like careless. You say most careless. Stressful, less stressful. And the last one, we have the must or least for adjectives with three or more syllables. So, as I've said kanina, katulad lang siya ng comparative degree, only that you use more or less in comparative, while must or least in superlative degree. And for number 4, we have the absolute adjectives. When we say absolute adjectives, those that do not form their comparative and superlative degree because they reach their accuracy and they cannot be used in comparison. So you do not say most perfect or more perfect, just say perfect. Most correct or more correct, because there's no such thing as less correct, because when you say correct, correct talaga. And we have here a basic pattern for a series of adjectives. So sometimes nakakabasa tayo ng sunod-sunod na adjectives and there should be a pattern that should be followed so that it should not look messy. So it is something like this: DIQS, HCAN, and HN. So D is determiner or the number. It could be the, a, or to. And when there are ordinals and ranks, kailangan nauna po yung ordinal. Say the first two. So nauna po yung first bago yung two. Next is intensifiers. What's the intensity? What's the degree? Yung very, more, super, for example. Next is quality. Of course, it refers to the how cute it is. So, just the quality. And then next is the shape. And then the color. And then another noun. And then the head noun. So, that's how you arrange series of adjectives. Now, we proceed to adverbs. What's the difference between adjective and adverbs? When we say adjective, it modifies a noun. But when we say adverbs, they modify verb, adjective, and other adverbs or sentences. And always remember that adverb answers the question how, when, where, and why, and to what degree or to what extent of quality or quantity. So examples here are again written in bold. Of course, you can read them here. So now there are positions of adverbs in the sentence. So for us to easily determine where these adverbs are, the first one is adverbs normally follow the verb they modify. So normally they follow the verb they modify. So example is young people love listening to Moira because she sings emotionally. Sing is your verb and is followed by its modifier emotionally. So they are close to each other. Next is adverbs of frequency and place are normally placed. So I frequently check my phone for message or calls. Next is between the subject and the verb. So it's between the subject and the verb. Your subject is I frequently checked. Your verb is checked. So it's between the subject and the verb. It could also be after the linking verb. She is always. So your linking verb is and your adverb is always. Between verb phrases. So you can never rely on people who are selfish. So adverbs of frequency can be positioned in three places: between the subject and the verb, after the linking verb, and between verb phrases. And we have the adverbs of time and succession are placed at the beginning or at the end of the sentence. You say, last night Aldrin proposed to Jane. Last night it is placed at the beginning of the sentence and it is an adverb of time because it is trying to modify when did Aldrin propose to Jane. That is last night. And then when did the wedding happen? It was yesterday. So that's the adverb of time. And next, adverbs of degree and measure are placed next to the words they modify. Example is, Lizelle is much happier now than she was years back. So the word or the adverb of degree match is trying to modify happier. Therefore, it is written before the word happier. 5. Adverbs usually come immediately before the adjectives or adverbs they modify. So Ma'am Visi speaks very motherly. So of course, when you try to modify or you use intensifiers, you place it very close to the verb it is you are trying to modify. Next, adverbs of assertion appear before the sentences. So definitely, honestly, actually, they are all adverbs of assertion. So you should place them before the sentences. And just like adjectives, we also have the degrees of comparison. So the rules are you just add er or est with one syllable. You use more, most, or less, least with adverbs for more than one syllable, and few irregular adverbs change their spelling, just like well, it becomes better, and then best, good, good, better, best, bad, worst, worst, little, less, least. So they change their spelling because they are called irregular adverbs. So those are the first 3 topics of your linguistic competence under grammar accuracy. So let's have a summary. So the first one that we discuss is all about nouns, and nouns can act as subject, direct object, indirect object, object of the preposition, object complement, subject complement, appositive, vocative, and modifier. Now, when we are talking of verbs, they are actually words that denote action and express a state of being. And there are 4 types. Yung copula verbs natin, yung ating auxiliary verbs, yung ating action verbs. We have the 3 tenses, the present, past, and future. We have the 4 aspects, the simple, the perfect, the progressive, and the perfect progressive. And we have verbals which are classified into 3, the gerunds. Nag-e-end siya ng ing pero they are functioning as nouns. Infinitives, tandaan nyo yung infinitives, they are 2 plus base form. To eat, to dance, to sing, to talk. So something like that. And participles, they also end in ing, they end in ed and en, but they are not functioning as verbs. They are used as adjectives. Yun ang ating mga participles. And modifiers naman, we have actually two, the adjectives and the adverbs. So under adjectives, we have the positive, comparative, and superlative degree. And the basic pattern, nauuna yung determiner, sinusundan ng intensifier, quality, and then shape, color, and last yung another noun and head noun. And adverbs, the modifiers of verbs, adjective, and other adverbs or sentences. So they can be at the beginning, between the subject and the verb, after the linking verb, between verb phrases, and then at the beginning and at the end of the sentence, and close to the word it modifies. And of course, under the degrees of comparison, you add er or est, you use more or less, and of course, the last one is you change the spelling. So those are the first three topics. Please have them summarized in your notebook. Now, if you have questions, please feel free to air your questions in our group chat so that they can be answered.